In this video, we're going to start on page 71 is the learn section for dividing a fraction by a fraction. So we're still in the multiplying fractions and dividing fractions and decimals chapter. We're going to work through the problem number 18 on page 73. So this one is, since it's dividing a fraction by a fraction rather than a whole number by a fraction, we're going to do 2/3 divided by 1/6. So 2/3 divided by 1/6. Same process as dividing a whole number by a fraction. We're going to keep, change, and flip. So we keep the dividend the same. We change the operation to the opposite. And then we flip the divisor to the reciprocal. So this would look like 2/3 times, because I changed that to the opposite operation. The opposite of division is multiplication. And then the reciprocal of 1/6 is 6/1. So I essentially take the denominator, I make it the numerator. I take the numerator and I make it the denominator. And I can do that because I'm making it flipped on the side because I made this the opposite operation. So I can flip this to make it the opposite. Okay, so this would equal, I just multiply across, 2 times 6 is 12, and 3 times 1 is 3. Okay, now you might look at this and go, I think that I can divide both of those by the same thing. Okay, there's going to be times where you're just going to divide by 2, then divide by 2, then divide by 2. You'll know what you can divide these by, and you'll know when it's in simplest form when you've divided by the greatest common factor to simplify it. So some people will call it the lowest terms or the simplest form. Regardless, you're dividing by the greatest common factor. So if I use my prime factorization chart that we used in chapter 1, and I put my numerator and my denominator in it, and I factor out all the prime factors, 12 divided by 3 is 4, 3 divided by 3 is 1. I can't divide those by the same thing, so the greatest common factor is 3. So to simplify this fraction, I divide both of these by 3. I have to divide both the numerator and the denominator by the same number. Otherwise, I'm changing the fraction. Because 3 divided by 3 is equal to 1. So 3/3 equals 1. So when I divide by 1, I'm essentially making this the same or an equivalent, it's called fraction. So this would be 4/1. So 12/3 is equal to 4/1. So you might think that this is in simplest form. It technically is the simplest or the lowest term of the fraction, but it's still an improper fraction because the numerator is larger than the denominator. Remember we said that the fraction line is also known as divided by. So 4 divided by 1, you know that math fact, it's equal to 4. So the answer for 2/3 divided by 1/6 would be 4. If they just asked you to find an equivalent fraction, though, your answer would be 4/1. Or you could do 12 times 2 and 3 times 2, and you could have found an equivalent fraction of 24/6. Okay? You always need to answer in simplest form if it says to divide, express the quotient in simplest form, or if it just says to divide, find the answer of what this fraction is. Now, that being said, when I got to 12/3 here, could I have, instead of finding the greatest common factor, could I have said to myself 12 divided by 3? You should all know what 12 divided by 3 is as well. Okay. We're going to try another problem just to make sure you guys understand all the different ways you could simplify. So if I have 7/16 divided by 5 twelfths. Hopefully you're remembering to keep change and flip. So this would be 7/16. I change the operation to the opposite, so division becomes multiplication, and then I flip my divisor to the reciprocal. So 5/12 becomes 12/5. Okay. Now up here, I could have done something called cross-reducing. Okay, and that would have simplified it for me already. This may confuse some of you, and you don't have to do this. So if it confuses you, you can not do it. So 6, if one's on the numerator and one's in the denominator, I can simplify them. I cannot simplify if it's both in the numerator. So 6 and 3 can both divide by each other. So this would be 6 divided by 3 is 2, and 3 divided by 3 is 1. Then I would multiply across and have 2 times 2 equals 4, and 1 times 1 is 1, which I have my same answer as I had there. So it's just a way to simplify before you get your answer and then simplifying after. So it doesn't matter which way you do it. You're just simplifying ahead if you're cross-reducing here or you're simplifying here. You're still having to simplify. So that being said, I could do that right here with 16 and 12 because they're both even. Okay, I couldn't do it again if 7 and 12 were both even. I couldn't do that because they're both numerators. Okay, so I could cross-reduce. We're not going to. So you could just multiply straight across. So find your answers here. So you would have 84. And 80. And then you can see that this is improper. It's an improper fraction because the numerator is larger than the denominator. So the way I can solve this is I can say 84 eightieths, and then I can subtract 80 eightieths. And I would know that 80 eightieths is equal to 1 because 80 divided by 80 is 1. So that leaves me with 84 minus 80 is 4. And when you subtract or add fractions, you do not do 80 minus 80 and get 0. It stays the same, remember? So 84 minus 80 is 4, and 80 stays the same at 80ths. So I have this and this part that makes up 84 eightieths. So these two together equal this. So if you're thinking of a fact family, 84 minus 80 equals 4. 4 plus 80 equals 84. Okay, so this can become 1. So now I have 1 and 4 eightieths. So instead of having an improper fraction, I have a mixed number of 1 and 4 eightieths. Now, if I had an algebra problem or something like that, I would actually want to leave this an improper fraction and continue solving my algebra problem until I was down to my last possible answer and then make it a mixed number. So 1 and 4 eightieths, can I simplify? So I'm going to carry that down to the next line. 1 and 4 eightieths, I can divide 4 and 80 both by the same thing, at least by 2. I'm going to check by 4, and I can know that I can divide 8 by 4, so it would be equal to 1 and 1/20th. Because 80 divided by 4 is 20, and 4 divided by 4 is 1.